Alright, so to start this diorama, I am using some of this insulating foam. This is like a foam sheet that goes in your wall for insulation. It's just like a lot of people use it like in your basement and stuff. But it's really compact and dense, and it makes for really good like display bases. You can carve it and cut it, and cut it with a heat knife and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen tons and tons of people that do miniatures and model making. They use this stuff a lot for like really cool like display bases. So I cut that edge there just to kind of give it like a little bit of a cool shape, and I go through and I use my X-Acto blade to kind of cut like grooves into it to make it look more just like a natural kind of like trying to kind of make it look like a hillside. So then I use some Elmer's glue. I have a big bucket of it. Just using some Elmer's glue and just painting it over the entire surface. Just the top, not painting it on the side. I just want it to be on the top of the display. So then I have this cup here. This is some tube sand, and I've gone through and I've kind of filtered it out so I can get like the smaller parts. Tube sand is just really cheap, junky sand that goes in a long like bag, like a tube bag, and you put it like in the back of your truck to kind of weigh your truck down. At least that's what I've always used it for. But it's just really cheap, junky sand, but if you go through and you filter it out, you can get some of the smaller bits and some of the bigger bits separated. This is the same sand I've been using. I used it on the Obi-Wan statue I just did. I've used it on the Boba Fett statue. So all these files I found on Thingiverse. I will put a link for you guys if you want to print them yourself. I had problems with this Jeep print, and I'm not sure if it was the file itself. It seemed like it was. I printed it like 4 or 5 times and I had problems with it every single time. But I also just replaced my FEP like resin vat screen, so that could very well be what the issue was, and I just didn't really notice it until it got bad. But anyway, that Jeep printing being so bad, it kind of led me down a different path for this display. I wanted to try to blend in a couple like cool things that like I love from Jurassic Park. So like the original Jeep I love, and then I love the first Jurassic World movie, so I wanted to do the Indominus Rex. So I decided to make the Indominus Rex and Blue, the raptor. So in that movie, the kids do find an old Jeep, so I figured why not just make like this an old rundown destroyed Jeep. And so that worked out pretty good because my print printed all of the tires somehow without being connected to the Jeep print. They just kind of printed next to it, which was really weird. So I had all the tires, but then you can see there's that big hole in the hood. So I was gonna go through and just kind of make that, weather it and rust it up and make it look old and rusty. I didn't film doing that. I will go through and do that later. It's because this scale is so small that it's really hard to kind of film and have you guys like see exactly what I'm doing. But I've done that before in other stuff, so you should kind of know how I do like weathering and rusting and that kind of stuff. And speaking of small, here I am painting the the number here on the front. This is number 18. So I assume that the park had like a ton of these Jeeps, you know, and they're all service Jeeps for the park employees, and they were all numbered. So there's a red JP18 on the hood, and then on the side, on that red stripe there, it's the same color as the Jeep, the tan. It just says 18. And then even smaller than that is the Jurassic Park logo on the side of the door. This is something that obviously you're not gonna make it look perfect. I'm just kind of going for visually, so you kind of recognize what it is. So I did like a red circle. I used a little bit of black to make that crossbar where the white letters go, and kind of like this little skeleton thing to make it look like the T-Rex skeleton, and then a little bit of yellow to surround it. Then I go through and I paint all the lights. You can see on my phone I have a picture of the Jeep that I'm always referencing while I'm painting, just to make sure that I'm getting it as close as possible. So now I glue the wheels on, at least these back ones. The front one is glued on, but I don't keep it glued on. Alright, so now back to the base. I'm just using some brown acrylic paint, and I watered it down, and I'm just kind of dabbing it on all these little spots here where you can see the foam underneath. I know a lot of people will mix up their glue with the paint just so that it covers the base, and I always forget to do that, but this doesn't take that much longer anyway, plus you have to paint the sides anyway, so for me it's just it doesn't take that much longer, honestly. And so I just wanted this to look like dirt and, you know, some mud, so I just dabbed this all over the place. So now the Indominus here, this was a cool print. It's a cool file. I go through here with some dark gray first. Basically, every picture I've looked at of the Indominus is always different. Some of them use light gray, some of them use like bright white. So it's just kind of hard to really know what to do. So just kind of did my thing, you know. So I did the dark gray, then I dry brushed some lighter gray on top. The one constant thing that I have seen with the Indominus is that he does have like a bluish hue to him. So after I dry brushed this light gray on top, I mixed up some blue and some black, and I watered it down, and I'm using that as a wash. So you can see here after I dab it, you can really see like the blues kind of show through underneath. It kind of gives the effect that like his skin is a bluish color, but his scales on top are lighter. So after that blue wash is dry, I go back over with some white and I just dry brush some of the higher parts. So like his head and his back and the, you know, just the kind of leave like the underbelly how it is, but I just really tried to get the brighter white on the top parts. Then I go through some red, I paint his mouth, and his eyes get painted red too, and then he gets a little bit of black inlay around the eyeball itself in a little recessed area. And then I paint all his claws black too, and I add a little bit of yellow on his teeth. See here too how I use my hand. I dip my brush, and if there's a lot of paint, then I'm just trying to get the paint on the very tip of my brush. I kind of will roll my brush around on my thumb just to get the excess paint off. I do that a lot. Alright, so now we're going to move on here and I'm going to paint blue. I had two raptors printed. I have that running pose and the standing pose, and I decided just to use this standing pose. So I go through, kind of like with the Indominus, I go through with the dark gray first. I dry brush some lighter gray underneath. And then I do a brownish gray dry brush on the very top. Again, just like the Indominus, every picture you look at is a little different. I think raptors are a little bit more brownish. So then I can go through with this blue here and give blue her namesake. Do this blue stripe all the way down both sides. This raptor was actually really fun to paint. Once I did that brown dry brush on the top, it really started to come together. And then once you do the stripe down the side, I was just like, man, it really sells, which dinosaur it is. You can tell just by looking at it. So now I glue that tire onto the base. I kind of figured out where I wanted everything to go first. And then I glue the Jeep on top of that. And then this tire on the other side goes underneath there. This kind of gives it the look that it's run down and the axles are broken, and the Indominus will be standing on it. So it's almost like the front end of the Jeep kind of squashed down with the weight of the Indominus on it. So then I bought some of this moss. And so I just kind of take it out, and this is the first time I've used this in anything. I've always seen it. I've never needed it or used it for a project. This is real. It's real moss. It's just dried. So as soon as you take it out of the bag, it smells like moss. It smells like camping. It's kind of crazy. So I just kind of broke the moss up in a couple little spots, and I hot glue it right to the base. I wanted like the back of this display to be like woodsy, like the jungle, but I also wanted it to look like it used to be like a service road that was overgrown. So I put that moss on that corner in the front there, and specifically leave like a path in the back. It looks like it used to be a road that's like just so that the jungle is starting to take over again. It was kind of cool too. Once I got the moss on there and the Indominus glued on, it was already starting to come together and look pretty cool. There's always this process of anytime you're doing something and you're working on it and you're like, I don't know, it is what it is. There can be that time where like you don't really like what you're doing, and out of context you're painting everything separately, and you're like, I don't know if this is gonna come together. But for me, like right now in this moment, once I was gluing the dinosaurs on there and the moss on there, I was like, man, yeah, this is actually looking pretty good. was starting to get happy with it. So there is the base with the Indominus in blue and the Jeep. But the other thing is it needs a little bit of jungle. So I bought these at Walmart. These are like, I think they're herbs. Honestly, I think they're supposed to be like herbs. And I was gonna cut these off, but I realized that they pull off the base, and then you're left with that really cool looking cactus for like a desert thing. If I ever make a desert display. So I pulled all the leaves off, and then I just hot glued them, kind of randomly around the back of the display here. The scale of these too, it kind of worked out where they don't look like they're super huge, but they look big enough to look like they belong in like the Jurassic era. They look like prehistoric plants. So these little purple things are cool. I saw these just because like they have a little bit of color, and I wanted to add a little bit of color to it. So I kind of cut that apart, and then I stuck that stem through and glued that right into the back. I dug a little hole for the stem to go into, and I just glued it in there. So now here's another file I found that to me really sells the like original trilogy. Is the dock sign, the east dock sign. But this was kind of challenging to paint. It's pretty small. The scale was pretty small. So first thing I did is I painted the blue around that little boat logo. You can see on my phone just exactly what I'm copying. Then the sign itself is black. Then I do the arrow, and I do the border of that hexagon sign there. And then I can go back in with some orange and just paint the lettering just that too. Now, talk about tiny. These are little compies that I printed out, and I just give these a quick paint with some green, and then I just kind of add these in front of the Jeep there. I just use a little bit of super glue, and I just tack these in place. You can see how small they are. They keep like knocking them over, and my finger is too big, so I try to use like a little tool just to kind of stick them in place. Glue my sign in the back there. So again, to sell that this is like an old overgrown road, I put this in the back. And that is it for the Jurassic display. I hope you guys didn't like it. I am very excited to see the movie. Will and I will be talking about it soon, so look forward to that too, and I will catch you guys next time.